Have you ever fantasized about having a rotation of women, or maybe a harem, if you want to call it that, or a threesome, or hooking up with porn stars, or doing other wild sexual stuff? Well, of course you have. In this video, I'm going to show you why most guys will never be able to live out those sexual fantasies, and the one big reason that's probably holding them back. Then I'm going to give you the roadmap for crossing everything off your sexual bucket list, and why it's really important you actually do that before committing to a monogamous long-term relationship with your dream girl. Then I'm going to give you the exact playbook of how to pull off this stuff, a threesome, a harem, and also how to hook up with the hottest baddies you can find, or if you're into porn stars, how you can do that too. You're listening to the Inner Confidence Podcast. My name is Robbie Kramer. I've been a coach since 2007, and I've helped countless men rapidly achieve all of their social and dating goals. My mission is simple: to help you position yourself to meet stunning women and make awesome friends en route to becoming the most confident and attractive version you can possibly be. I'm absolutely obsessed with giving you the most leveraged ways possible to win the game, so stick around, let's go. So first, let's talk about why most guys won't ever be able to pull this off. Most guys fluctuate between forced celibacy and monogamy. And forced celibacy is just a fancy way of saying you're masturbating a lot. You have no one to hook up with. You have no one to have sex with. And what happens for most guys is once they meet a girl that they're interested in and who shows some interest back, they naturally end up hooking up. And then the girl understands that he's very much invested in her. And why would she not demand monogamy? Right? It's a good deal for her. She gets, pure access to all of the things that come with dating him, his time, his attention, benefits of being in a relationship with him if he has money. And usually women try to date higher value guys. Women don't date down. They always date up. So it's in her best interest to get you into a monogamous relationship, even if she's not even looking for that, even if she's like a young girl who's just trying to get out there and go through that stage of finding herself, as they call it. She's still going to demand that from you. You'll be the simp boyfriend. You'll be in the boyfriend zone. And that really happens to all guys who struggle with nice guy syndrome. So my story about struggling with nice guy syndrome was, pretty simple. I'm guessing if you're listening to this, you could relate. The only way I knew of how to seduce women was try to do nice things for them, like make extra copies of my homework in high school. Luckily, I found that when I did meet a girl after a while of, showing interest and kind of like wearing her down, I was able to, get in a relationship. But I had these long periods. I had like 3 multi-year relationships all through my 20s and into my early 30s. In the back of my mind, I was always jealous of the guys who could go out to bars and clubs and pull girls from there and have these sort of open relationships or have these wild and crazy adventures. But I could never do that because I was just too afraid to ever set up those sorts of open relationships. I didn't know how to do it. I didn't know how to have, the conversations that would allow me to break out of that forced monogamy situation. And then obviously when I did break up with a girl and then I was single, I was, just wondering when the next time I was going to have sex was. So the process would kind of repeat. It was like a vicious circle. And finally, I learned to spin plates. Spinning plates is another way of saying managing a rotation of girls or dating multiple women at the same time. Eventually, this happened because I was dating this girl. She was like total wifey material, living in New York. She was a pharmacist, made good money, also same religious background. Not that I was very religious, but, it just kind of dawned on me like, oh my God, I'm not ready for this. And we were both in our early 30s. So I broke it off and she was devastated. I kind of wasted her time, which I didn't feel great about. But at least at that point in the road, I told myself, all right, Robbie, you're not allowed to be in another monogamous relationship until you've crossed that stuff off your sexual bucket list that you've really been fantasizing about, right? So I made a challenge with a buddy of mine, who's a wingman, to go on 30 first dates in 30 days. And this is right when Tinder had come out in New York City, circa 2012. And I did a combination of Tinder, hunting during the day. People call that day game, basically just approaching girls on the subway, on the sidewalk, at Starbucks, wherever I saw them, and then went out, many nights a week, sometimes 4, 5, 6 nights a week with my buddy, who was also very motivated to go out and go on a ton of dates. And it was really helpful to have a wingman to push each other. We lived together, we cooked together, we worked out together, we were working on businesses together. And having that sort of accountability from a buddy who had the right mentality and the right frame was, I think, the biggest thing that really allowed me to experience that crazy period of growth. And so for the next 6 months, I did the 30 dates in 30 days. I ended up going on, I think, more than 30 first dates. And I also went on second dates and third dates, and then some, obviously, more dates once I started hooking up with those girls. This allowed me to be in a place of abundance for the first time ever in my life. Knowing that I had more dates set up basically stopped me from trying to, get to sex as fast as I could with each girl. And, because what I would typically do before that was I'd meet a girl, have a good date, and then I'd want to see her again. So we'd see her again, and I'd see her again, then we'd be having sex, and then we'd start hanging out basically every day. And then sooner or later, we're dating. And when you see a girl every day or multiple times per week, it's very obvious to her that you're not seeing anyone else, right? But if you're only seeing her once a week, or, you don't want to make it too obvious, you want to kind of stagger it so it doesn't look like you're doing that, right? She doesn't want to think she's your Wednesday girl. But if you have a lot of stuff to do, it's going to be easy to keep that time. And when you're doing that, you're basically signaling to her that I'm not looking for anything serious, right? I've got other stuff going on. She doesn't know what you're doing. You're not texting her every night because you're on dates with other girls. And she doesn't need to know that you're, overtly doing that, but she'll just kind of likely figure it out. And women are always doing this too, right? They're seeing a guy or they're talking to a few different guys. That just means, it means what it means. Like they're probably doing more than talking or more than seeing. That means they're sleeping with multiple men some of the time. Obviously, these words are meant to fool you for a reason, right? But all women, when they're single, have a roster of guys that are going after them, and they are choosing the best guy out of that long, long list of guys on the roster, especially if they're hot, right? That list could be hundreds of dudes. Now with social media, Instagram, thousands of dudes, right? Any guy in the whole in the whole world is potentially on that list, if he slid into the DMs or they met or whatever. But this is the process, what I call hunting, spinning plates. Like you learn to get good at dating, right? And most guys never get good at dating. They just date the first great girl that comes along. Or if you're like me, then you break up with her and then you find the next one when you're horny and frustrated, and rinse, repeat, right? That's the forced celibacy to monogamy. So again, to break out of that, you got to learn to hunt. You got to learn how to take women on dates. How do you do that? You go on a lot of dates. You learn the dating protocol, download it for free from my site. We've solved first dates and second dates, third dates. If a girl agrees to a date, we've solved how to turn that into a sexual relationship. It's not that difficult. You just don't do what every other guy's doing. But you need to do that a lot. You need to get that experience and that exposure. And when you do, after a while, you'll be forced to have these conversations of, call it define the relationship talk. Now, again, if you've managed to maintain the right frame of not seeing her too often, then she might just realize like, okay, there's no point in having this define the relationship talk because this guy is showing versus telling. But eventually, when you hit that 3-month mark, sometimes it'll take a little longer. Most girls, if they really like you, right, they're going to be like, well, what are we? They're going to want to define the relationship. And in that case, I would say get ahead of it, right? Before she brings that up, what I'd like to do is say, hey, listen, I wanted to kind of have a talk with you. I don't want to be presumptuous, but, I feel like I like you and I think you like me. And I just kind of want to let you know, what's in my head about what I'm thinking. Listen, I really like you. I want to be honest with you first and foremost because I respect you. And I'm not really in a place to commit to anything like serious right now. I'm young and I'm working on my business and I just don't know where, what I'm doing, where I'm going to be. I might have to move for work. I'm just not in a place where I can offer that sort of thing, but I still want to keep having fun with you. I want to see where this goes. And I just kind of wanted you to know that. And, if you're looking for something more, I don't also want to waste your time. Most girls will be very happy that you had that conversation with them. They wouldn't have to be awkward and bring it up because it's never easy for them to bring it up either. And when you do that, you're basically signaling that you have the courage to let her walk away. And she might walk away. But if the sex was good And the sex will be good if you're going out on a lot of dates and having sex with a variety of women. You're going to learn that every woman's different and they're not all the same in bed, and how to be a better lover, right? You need that experience to be a better lover. Obviously, you can get that by being in long-term relationships as well, but that's just with one girl. And it's pretty crazy to me, like how the preferences in bed like really change from girl to girl. So if you're a good lover, she'll come back, right? She'll come back and she'll booty call you, or she'll, date another guy, and then like she'll be on the rebound and then she'll hit you up. But you will always be that guy sort of in her life where she can go to for great sex, and it doesn't have to be this pressurized commitment sort of thing. It's really hard for women to find that. And, you're not doing what the typical guy does, which is just cheat on her. When you do that, you develop the correct frame for being a guy in abundance. And the girls that are left over, that don't basically leave, are the ones where you can then start having crazy sexual adventures with, because they've effectively opted in to that scenario, right? She's basically said, okay, you have the freedom to do what you do. I enjoy having sex with you, so we can keep doing that. And remember, none of this is an overt communication. We've not verbally had discussed what I just said, right? That would be awkward. But she just kind of understands. So at that point, I might go threesome hunting with a girl, especially if I find out that she's interested in other women and that sort of stuff, which will be kind of obvious based on, how she checks out other girls, or she'll drop little hints here or there. So I'm going to tell you 3 different stories of the 3 different sort of frameworks for how you can have a threesome. The first one is how you can have a threesome with your girlfriend. The first time I did this, I was in my late 20s. It was before the girl that I mentioned who was the pharmacist. And this girl, I found out she was interested in other women because we watched that movie called Hall Pass. And she expressed interest in having a hall pass, which is basically like a day off from their relationship. And we said, okay, we'll do that. She hooked up with this Australian and told me all about how he destroyed her and how he had the world's biggest dick. And that was fantastic, let me tell you. That was pretty brutal. Luckily, I got even and I had a hall pass, or I hooked up with a girl while I was giving a presentation in Miami. And we were both jealous, but we dealt with it. So that was a tough pill to swallow, you could say, but a very important lesson learned, that I was actually able to create that setup. And then that paved the way to us having a threesome in Vegas. Not long after, we went out to a nightclub, Dre's, after hours in Vegas. And it was just like luck would have it. Some girl walked up to us and she was, we were flirting with her. And I did the job of kind of like opening her first, which is what most guys screw up. They try to get the girl to do all the work. But I opened this girl and I was like flirting with both. But obviously I had my girlfriend in tow. So I had that pre-selection from her. We ended up hooking up that night and, it was cool. I had some sexual dysfunction because I was too nervous, but managed to, at least have that, cross it off the bucket list for the threesome. The next threesome I had was a few years later. This was a girl I met through my social circle. She was actually staying with us. We had an Airbnb place in LA that we rented and we subletted on Airbnb back in 2013 when that was totally not something everybody did. But she stayed with us, and over time, I didn't really try to go for her or make any moves because I knew that she was, this hot bottle service waitress and every guy was hitting on her. So I just kind of waited. I waited until she, was kind of tipsy one night, and she found me in the house when all the other guys were kind of hitting on her. And she was like, hey, let's smoke weed together. So I'm not really a weed smoker, but she smoked weed and then we hooked up. And she had seen me going on dates with other girls, and she kind of knew my vibe. Also from my buddy who was, basically telling her what a player I am. But so she already knew that I wasn't interested in monogamy. And she was really into other girls. So we started going threesome hunting. And one of the most notable threesomes we had was we were at the Abbey, which is a gay bar in West Hollywood, a very iconic gay bar that most people have been to at some point or another on a trip to LA. And there was this cute girl there, and I walk up to her, and I had my girlfriend on my arm, and I said, hey, 3 random questions for you. The first, do you find us each independently attractive? And she's like, yeah. And I said, do you have a boyfriend? And she said, no. And I said, well, what's your excuse for not making out with us right now? And then I pushed her head with my girlfriend's head. They started making out. And then I kind of started making out with her too. And then the three of us started making out. We ended up going back home, had a wild and crazy threesome. The girl at the end kind of got, I don't know, a little bit spooked or something, because my girlfriend tried to basically do some like butt stuff with her, which was quite funny. This girl like ran out of the house, jumped in her car naked, drove her car home back to the Palisades, and crashed into a parked car right in front of her house. She called us the next day with the story. It was it was good that she called, obviously, because we knew that she wasn't obviously that freaked out. And then she came back that next night, and we had another threesome, and the butt stuff was done too. So that was fun. And then, the last threesome story was with two girls that I was casually dating. So neither of these girls were my girlfriend. They both knew that I was like basically, not in any sort of monogamous relationships. I was kind of a digital nomad at the time. They both lived in New York, and I was splitting my time between New York, LA, and Europe. So when I was in New York, I'd see them, we'd hook up, and I would always tell them about my crazy adventures. And at one point I was like, hey, you need to meet this other girl, because I feel like you guys would really hit it off. You're both spiritual, and you're into like numerology and all this sort of like spiritual girl chick crack stuff that I talk about all the time in the in the IC community. I make all the guys in the IC community learn how to sort of have these spiritual conversations, and it's chicks dig this stuff. It really they can't get enough of it. So this is our Discord community. There's a whole system in place to help you level up, from our belt system to our weekly Zoom calls. Plus, members get exclusive access to things like the organized girl advice threads, where you'll be guided with specific real-time advice for your specific girls, and the ability to post recordings of your approaches and other interactions, screenshots to get direct feedback on things like texting, fashion advice, you name it. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. And the best part, it's a place where you get real-time feedback, accountability, and tons of support from other members all around the globe. If you've been in a community before, I guarantee it's nothing like this one. I only accept successful and motivated guys who want to reach the highest levels of personal development and game. So if you're a total noob or a tire kicker, this is probably not going to be a good fit for you. You'll discover all the other benefits when you join. So if you're looking to take your game to the next level, this could be the place for you. So we met and went to a bar. I invited both of them. They both knew, and went back to my place, and we had just like probably the best threesome I'd ever had, because there wasn't any pressure to like give one girl more or less attention, because both of them were kind of at that same level in terms of commitment and proximity, closeness to me, right? When you have a threesome with your girlfriend, she's probably going to be like super critical and worried that you're going to spend more time with the other girl. Maybe you're going to come with the other girl, right? And so you want to manage that, and obviously don't do that because it's going to cause drama. But both of these girls were like really, I liked them both the same. They both liked me kind of the same. They both liked each other. And when you can get that amazing chemistry where it's like everybody likes everybody kind of the same, then those make amazing threesomes. When it's very actually hard to do that, because most of the time there's like two people that are really more into it, and one person kind of feels left out. As the guy, I recommend it's better if you're the one who feels a little bit left out. Obviously it's bad for your ego, but you'll learn over time how to get better at that and how to not be like the thirsty guy and push that. And then what will happen is eventually the girls will be like, all right, we need some dick, because it's great to do the carpet munching, but after a while, like, we need some cock. So at that point, then they'll really like want your involvement, but you have to stay patient. So I don't want to get too in the weeds with the ins and outs of that. But leave me a comment if you're interested in that stuff, and I'll figure out how to get you that information. So once you have done that, right, now your frame is much stronger. You're the type of guy who has threesomes. You're not like intimidated by that. If you're then looking to like take it even further, if you want like group sex, orgies, hooking up with porn stars, whatever, it's time to develop a social circle of these sexually liberated women. And the best way to do that is go where they go. And really easy to find that in the big cities like LA, New York, San Francisco, Miami, Europe. You go to sex parties, right? And most sex parties are relatively easy to find. They kind of advertise. And it's going to be the 80-20 rule, right? 80% of the people are going to be like not people you want to hook up with, old, maybe not unattractive, not the best looking crowd, but 20% will probably be the people that you do like. Quick announcement for my favorite euphoric seltzer, New Brew. If you like the feeling of being drunk, but you don't want to actually be drunk and you don't want to drink alcohol anymore like me, switch to New Brew. This stuff is amazing. It's made of kratom and kava root. And when they put it together, you get the feeling of being buzzed. I can only drink one of these. I can drink 13, 14 drinks in a night if I needed to, or beer. But one of these kind of does the trick for me. Two of them, and I start feeling like I'm hungover. My wife drinks two of these. She loves to drink them on the golf course. It makes her play better golf. So check out New Brew. The link's in the description for that. You can get 25% off for your first order. And my buddy Justin owns the company, and his wife Simi has been on the podcast a few times, and I get free New Brew if I promote their stuff, and I don't even get paid for this, so that's how you know it's good. I just like it, and so does my wife. So first time I ever went to a sex party, I went with that same girl who I mentioned that I had the second threesome with, and many subsequent threesomes with later, and it was a mansion party in LA. We went with my buddy and his girl, and we had never like swapped girls or done anything like that. And we weren't about to either. That would have just been a little bit weird between him and I and those girls, although the girls probably would have been down. Girls tend to like just kind of follow the leader. If the guys are comfortable with it, usually the girls can get behind it, especially if they're bi-curious or bisexual. So, it was a little bit surreal being there. And we didn't hook up with anyone else, but we did have sex in this like mirrored room where a lot of people were coming and going. So it was our first time kind of being like exhibitionists. And at one point, some guy tried to like come over and get involved, and I had to like gracefully tell him, no, sorry, she's not really into that. It forced me to get more confident in terms of communicating with people, especially in that environment. And we had a good time. Neither of us really pushed each other to do anything wild or crazy that like made us feel more comfortable. And we just kept going back. And over time, we started getting invited to private sex parties from hot couples because, they're like, okay, these people are hot. They're young and cool and fun. And we were invited to like a birthday party by this one couple. They had 3 kids, and the kids were, off at summer camp. They had a big pool in the backyard, and there were like 10 other couples there. They were all hot. They were all cool. And that was like a crazy, amazing afternoon, which turned into very late evening and morning by the time we left. And our social circle of these just like couples, and there were a lot of unicorns in this space too. A unicorn is like a single girl who goes to these sorts of things because it's a way for them to sort of exercise their sexuality without the constraints of a boyfriend, right? They know like these guys are in relationships. They're not going to like seek them out. So it's kind of a safe place for them to explore. And when you build a social circle of these types of people, it's interesting who you meet. It's typically very successful, high net worth dudes who have game and who also have the resources to like pull this sort of thing off. And the best way to network with these sorts of guys is to bring value in the form of, beautiful women, right? Like every guy in the position of power and, and they have resources, money, like they all typically want more women, especially if they're in open relationships and whatnot. And by being the guy who has access to that, that is the fastest way to network. And obviously if you have sex in the same room with a guy, you're going to get to become friends pretty quickly. And then, who knows what sort of business deals will come from that or other amazing opportunities in your life, right? The axiom from Scarface is first you get the money, then you get the power, then you get the women. But in reality, the way it worked for me, and I think most guys, is first you get some money, and then you learn how to be very good with women. And then you're able to transact with high net worth guys by showing, but like game recognized game. And these guys understand you're cool because you have this access to girls and they see you with hot girls and you're validated because of that. And then they want to get to know you. And then you use that to get money, and then you get power, and then you get even more of the women. So I think developing your social skills and not being the like nerd who gets really rich and has no social skills and then becomes like a sugar daddy and he gets taken advantage by girls, and that's no good if you go that route. So the last thing I did in terms of like the things I always wanted to cross off my sexual bucket list was I had sex with a few different, very well-known porn stars. The way I met the first one was at one of these Vegas sex party hotel takeovers. And she happened to be there with her boyfriend. I think they're married now, and they have a kid together, but this is when they were still first dating, and he was her manager. And they were at the party. They quickly recognized me and my girlfriend as two of the better looking people, and we kind of found our little crew of people, had our own little private thing, and me and the girl, we connected really well. And at one point, her dude was like, hey, if you want to like take Ariana and, just have some fun together without like the big group thing, like you're welcome to do that. And I was like, yeah, well, you're welcome to do the same with my girl. And so we kind of did that swap, and that was wild, right? Because this is a girl I'd seen in lots of things. And then I ended up having sex with some other really well-known porn stars in Eastern Europe. When I moved to Ukraine, I developed a social circle both there and with some other girls in Budapest, because I'd travel back and forth to Budapest quite a bit. And Budapest is kind of well known as the capital of Eastern European porn production. It's kind of like the Van Nuys, the valley of Europe. And I met these two women at a friend's birthday party because he was friends with one of the biggest producers in Budapest, and she brought the girls, and I sort of like massaged those relationships over a series of a few months. I came back to Budapest, and then I saw them at another buddy's birthday party in Cyprus, and I wasn't pushy. I wasn't a fanboy, like, oh, wow, those are the porn stars. Like, I didn't really give them extra attention or anything like that. I was just flirty and normal. And sure enough, as I played the long game, they both expressed interest and invited and wanted them to like, a night out in Budapest with some other friends and some other girls. And, we went to dinner, then we went to a club, and then we hung out. And then afterwards, everyone kind of left. And then I hooked up with one of these girls. And then kind of the same thing happened in Kiev when one of them was visiting a few months later. So the last thing on my sexual bucket list was joining the Mile High Club. And for whatever reason, I had the opportunity many, many times traveling with girlfriends, but I always had too much anxiety because, go in the lavatory in the back and you get, you're worried that someone's going to catch you or something's going to happen, right? It's not like they can really do anything, but it was like a fear of mine. So at one point I was traveling on a party trip. It was another guy's birthday, and we were flying from Kiev to Cyprus again. It's very fun to party in Cyprus if you bring a bunch of hot girls with you and cool guys. But there were two girls that I had hooked up with before who had hooked up with together. We had a threesome together anyways. So I was like, hey, let's all go join the Mile High Club in the tiny little bathroom in the back of the commercial, airliner. It was Fly UIA, or it was the Ukrainian International Airlines. And they had two hot flight attendants, and I wasn't like worried that they were going to like bust me. So my anxiety was cured. We went into the lavatory, had a fun little threesome in there, crossed that one off the bucket list, and now I have a funny story to brag about. So that is the sort of progression on how to have these experiences. And obviously you start by learning to hunt. You learn how to have a better frame by setting up these open relationships. Remember, don't do it overtly, do it more covertly. Show versus tell. And if you have to tell, be the one to tell before she has to ask you. And then you'll have a pool of girls who are open to these crazy things. And then you start doing them. You have the confidence to actually go out and do them, right? Push your comfort zone, have fun. Girls are always looking for guys who are like willing to get them into crazy stuff, right? It's hard for them to find guys like that, believe it or not. And that's why they say like the top 5% of guys have all the girls, because they're doing these sorts of things. Then you develop a social circle of more of these girls. And then once that happens, it's quite easy to explore whatever you want to explore. If you want to be in a monogamous relationship, just like I did, later when I met my wife, Maria, I had done all this stuff. So I like didn't have these nagging voices in my head saying, oh, Robbie, you shouldn't commit to anyone because you haven't done all those things. And like, because I've done those things, they lost their luster, right? It's cool to drive a really fancy sports car a few times. And then you're like, okay, it's just a car after a while. That's the same thing I experienced with like the group sex and threesomes and porn stars and all that sort of stuff. It's like, it's cool and it's novel and it's fun, but after a while, it is what it is. And I kind of got older, grew up, and wanted to have a normal relationship, have a family, and not really give a shit about that stuff anymore. But that sabotaged me from a lot of those earlier relationships. Had I done all that stuff in my 20s or early 30s, maybe I would have been ready for that sooner. I wasn't ready to do any of that stuff I wasn't ready for a monogamous long-term relationship until I was like 38, because it took me all throughout my 30s to accomplish all of those sexual goals that I had, to not be, having the grass is always greener conversation when you're in a relationship and you're wishing you're single and able to like pull a bunch of girls. So, hope that was informative. That's how you do it. And if you have any questions, drop a comment. See you in the next episode. Out of all the guys I know, the only ones who managed to consistently win the game are those who built and invested in a high status social circle. You can certainly approach women and try your luck on the apps if you're a Chad, but those strategies simply don't work consistently to attract top tier women and awesome friends into your life. But for most guys, the idea of building a social circle can feel overwhelming, so they continue to hunt for women in their usual ways and end up settling for a girl they were never really that excited about in the first place. To avoid this fate, join our community and instantly plug into a highly vetted social circle of cool dudes to network and navigate your journey with. You already know it's hard to find wingmen because the good ones don't stay in the game very long. Many of our members travel together, end up living together, build amazing circles, and even businesses together, both in the West and in many of the best locations around the globe with gorgeous women and low cost of living. I'm extremely careful who I let into this community, but if you feel like you'd make a good fit, you can apply to join. The link's in the description.